Hi everyone, it's Erin from EB Mixed Media. It is an absolute scorcher today on the East Coast, and I understand it's hot elsewhere in the United States as well. And I'm telling you that because I have to have my AC on, my air conditioning unit, while I'm doing this, so I hope it's not too noisy in the background. So I am, I've been back working in this craft journal. This is a 6x6 disc-bound craft paper journal from Joggles, and it comes, I think, with 12 pieces of craft cardstock. It's a heavy duty, it's heavier duty than stuff I've bought like at Michael's, and it's notched with a special punch. You can see the notches, I think. If I can get the glare not to, there. And those slip onto these discs, and the discs, there are different size discs, so you can make this bigger, I guess. But Joggles sells this as a journal, but they also sell these individual editions, additional pieces separately, and they have different colors and different sizes. I do like working with the square. So I think I've got maybe 15 or 14 collages in here, and I feel like it's done. It's getting pretty bulky. So I want to create a cover. And to do that, I'm going to be working today with these handmade soft pastels that are from Paul Rubens Art. They sent me these to try out, and I haven't worked a lot in pastels, but I bought some pastels when I was in Copenhagen because I was so taken with some of the art we saw there. So I said, yes, I'd love to play with these too, and I'm trying to learn more about how to use them. So this is a 48 color kit. Again, they are soft pastels, so they're very much like chalk. And as a result, they're very messy. And when I first opened this box, I was like, oh my goodness, this wasn't really packaged well. But then when I started watching videos, this is what everybody's boxes looked like. So I just don't think there's any way to really move these pastels around without making a mess. So it's very messy. So there's a card here to swatch. I don't know if I'm going to do that or use that. And then these are the colors. And I think the colors are stunning, so I'm excited to play with these. So I'm going to be making a journal cover. If you don't have a journal to make a cover for, you might still want to stick around because the technique I'm going to show you could be used for any background paper that you're wanting to make for your stash. So I have also been playing with carving stamps and experimenting with creating large background stamps. So I'm going to use these. I'm going to use the soft pastels, and I'm going to create a background that's very similar to this. Okay? This one I created with Neocolors, so we'll see how it works with the soft pastels, but I'm excited to try it. Okay? All right, let's get started. So to start with, I need a cover for my journal, excuse me, and I'm going to be using this Rice Krispie box to make that. Any kind of box that you get with food in it is a good weight for this sort of thing. It doesn't have to be super heavy. So to start with this, I need to cut it down to size. So I'm just going to trim this flap off here so I can fit it in here a little bit better. And the journal is 6 by 6. So let's see. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to cut off this flap here. There we go. And then I'm going to measure over here 6 inches. I think that moved a little bit. That's what I don't like about this paper cutter. And now I'm going to trim this. I think it's going to be okay to do it exactly the same size as the journal, now that I'm thinking about this. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Okay. And we'll do the same with this one. Trim this down. A nice clean line here. And here. Whoops. 6. And 6. So what I was thinking of doing, I created this on watercolor paper, and I was thinking of doing that again, and then just gluing it on here. I'm wondering if I can just paint this, but I think gluing it on is going to make this cover quite a bit sturdier. So what I think I might do, because this has a shiny coating, I think I might do a piece of watercolor paper. We'll glue this on, and then on this side, I might just try some gesso, and we'll see how the technique works on gesso as well, just for fun. Okay, let's do that. So let's start by painting these. Let me grab a big brush. Here's a big flat brush, and I've got my gesso here. So we'll just pour it right on. Might need a little bit more than that. And we're just going to put a coat on each of these. And this is kind of what gesso is meant for. I use gesso in a lot of other applications, but it's meant to be a primer to give your surface some tooth. And it's used on canvases and things like that. So it's really sort of an under coat, a primer. But I use it because it's inexpensive, or it's less expensive. Now I have way too much. It's less expensive than paint, I find, and if you're using it in huge quantities like I do, and it's smoother, it's more liquidy, so I think because I like to paint with my fingers, it mixes better on the page, and that's why I use gesso. I get that question a lot, and I probably started when I ran out of paint. Okay, so you could just use paint if you wanted to just paint this. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be gesso. All right, we'll set that aside to dry. I've got this watercolor pad. I believe I picked this up at a place called Ocean State Job Lots. It's kind of like a Big Lots. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's like I don't know, they buy huge lots of stuff that stores don't want or are trying to get rid of, and so it's cheap. So it is a 9x12. It's 140 pound. So it doesn't really matter. You know, this is going to be sturdy. I just set it in there. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay, so this is going to be sturdy enough, even if you just used a regular piece of paper. But I did this on watercolor. So the technique I'm going to show you in using these pastels is not anything new that I invented. It's not rocket science, but it is fun. So I've got a water bottle here. I've got my soft pastels, and I have this stamp. And so what I'm going to do is wet my stamp and pick a color here, maybe this one, and I'm just going to rub it on to the stamp like so, and then I'll pick another, maybe this, and the brighter orange here maybe. Okay, and then I'm going to spritz it again. And this is just sort of trial and error, and it's supposed to be dreamy. You're not trying to get a really sharp, crisp representation of your stamp. This is just making a really nice watercolory background with some interest in it. I should have gone the other way. I just realized. Isn't that cool though? And even though I missed a little corner there, I can just go back maybe and put it in. Now, sometimes you can get a second press, so let's see if I can. And I'm gonna turn this a different direction just for fun. I did get a second press, a little bit lighter, but still. Now, before I even put more on, I can spray, and I can even use my fingers to sort of move that color around. I feel like maybe I need a little bit more of this. Somebody's probably going to tell you it's not a good idea to get your pastels wet. I'm not using them to do fine art, so, but I think the colors are stunning. I can't really speak to the quality of the pastel as far as using it for doing art, like painting rather, because I'm not well versed in that, but I think the colors are fabulous. I'm always impressed with the colors in Paul Rubens stuff that I've seen and used. So I'm just gonna put some more on here. It is really this simple. And that's it. Now, oh look, now I got it there too. I don't know about you, but I think that's really pretty. I'm excited about that. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. So our gesso's dry here. I used my blow dryer to make sure it was dry. And I'm going to try doing it on this surface. I've got a different stamp here that I carved. And let's use a little bit different color family, but sort of in the same realm maybe, so that they talk to each other. Maybe we go with like these kind of colors. You know, 3 or 4 colors I think is all you really need. So let's give that a shot. So I've watered it down, and ooh, that's dark. And I'm just kind of making sure I get a little bit of the color spread out. Which one haven't I used? This one. Around the page. I love this color. I don't see anywhere where they've listed the names of these colors. So it doesn't really matter to me, but it might matter to some. All right. Let's see how this goes. Oh, that must sound there. I used way too much water. I don't know if it's taking as well on this surface, and I'm wondering if clear gesso would have been a better choice than regular gesso. I think clear gesso has even more tooth. So let's try that. Let's just experiment. I don't know if I just had too much water, or if because the gesso is not as absorbent as like watercolor paper, it just wasn't taking it, and that's why the water's pooling on the page. And you can see how messy this is. I've gotten smudges of the pastel on my hands and my workspace, so now it's on this as well. All right, I'm gonna dry this. I hope that's dry enough. So I'm just gonna add a little more water because I did 2 stamps on that. And this gesso, the Liquitex clear gesso, almost feels like sandpaper. It really does give more tooth than regular gesso. So that did a little better, but I honestly couldn't tell you if it's because I didn't use as much water or if the gesso was catching it. I'm not sure which. And I just go back in if there's little spots I want to add more texture to. And it works. I mean, this will be interesting as a background, even with the runniness. This is definitely more intense, but that's because that was my first. I didn't add any more color, so I did it 4 times, adding just that first round of color. So one thing about soft pastels is they are reactive, which means, and it's gonna be hard to tell, but you can go back in and still pull it up. You can see I am actually still able to pull that chalk up. So you don't want that on your journal cover, right? You want to be able to set it. So I'm going to use some matte medium to do that. I've got a simple gift card, not a gift, whatever, membership card, something. And I'm going to use this Liquitex matte medium. I'm going to just put it right on here. And I'm just going to move it around with this gift card. And this will work to set the soft pastels, the chalk, so that it won't be reactivated or moved around if you smudge it or you get water on it, like if we're going to do something else on top of this. And this might move the paint a little bit, but you can see it's kind of picking up some of that chalk. But it's the credit card allows you to be really kind of light with your movements so that you're not in danger of kind of wrecking your design. Let that dry. There's a lot of let that dry in this video. Okay, let's set this as well. Oops. Now there you can see I had enough color on the card that I got that line. So I'm going to see if I can take that out. Because this was a lighter stamp, I don't mind the fact that the color is running a bit because it's sort of filling in that white background a little bit better. So I could even add more, because now I've basically got a glaze going on here with that color. Okay, I've cut my watercolor paper down to 6 by 6, and now I'm just going to glue these together. So I'm going to use my art glitter glue to do that because it's a pretty good sturdy glue. Is that the right word? It's really sticky. Works well. I'm gonna bat out of this bottle. Wait a minute. I'm thinking about how I want these to look and on what side the binding, the rings are going to be on. So it looks like I am slightly off in my measurements because my paper cutter isn't great and I'm bad at this apparently. So looking back, it might have made more sense to affix the water paper to the Rice Krispie box and then cut it, and then you're assured of a perfect fit. So that's one thought. So I'm gonna have to trim a little bit here. Let's try let's try this one then. I think this is actually quite interesting with the running and kind of, so I'm gonna make that side where the rings are. This one I don't have a preference. Do I? Yeah, I think I like that. So, okay. think this is a better match, this one. So it's just off a little bit on that one. Okay, full confession time. You need to put a punch. You need to put punched holes in this cover in order for it to thread onto the discs, right? And I actually have a punch that makes those kinds of notches. This is a from Happy Planner, and I have that. But what I didn't think about was these are too thick now that I glued them together to get them to go in. So this is just for paper, and it absolutely will not take the thickness of this. But I have a solution for you, and this works if you don't even have one of these Happy Planner punches. So what we're gonna do, it's not ideal, but it's gonna work fine. So what we're gonna do is draw use one of these journal pages as a template and just kind of I'm drawing a half circle where the top of that punch needs to be. And then on this one, I'm gonna go here. Okay. So now, you need a hole punch. I've got a crocodile, but any hole punch, if it's sturdy enough, will do. And I'm gonna line my hole up at the top of that mark that I made. I don't know if you can see this. So I'm lining it up where it's supposed to be. And I'm gonna punch there. So I'll do that on all of these. Try to get it. It's fairly forgiving, so. Doesn't need to be exact, but it needs to be pretty close, right? You want it to line up with your pages in your journal. Okay, and then I'm gonna take some scissors and I'm just gonna cut a notch like so. And that might even be a little narrow. We shall see. But there is the notch that you need, or the punch that you will need to fit a cover, or to even create more journal pages if you wanted to. For example, if you had book pages that you wanted to create a disc-bound journal, you could do that without spending money on a fancy punch. And the fancy punch is expensive, so this is a good alternative. So let's just test that out. It might be a little snug, but it's gonna work and it's gonna hold it well. And there you go. Okay, now I am noticing, and I might flip this over, that this journal page is actually sticking up over the top. So I could maybe flip it around. But that's not bothering me. You might want to make your journal cover a 1/4 of an inch thicker, maybe, or wider. You know, maybe you go 6.5 by 6.5, and that would give you a 1/4 of an inch border all the way around. It would give you some space to overlap, but it doesn't bother me at all. Okay. And I'm wondering if I put it here, would it actually be fine? And I think it will be. And there, it fits perfectly. So. And that one fits perfectly as well. Okay. So now to finish this off. So I've cleaned up my workspace a little bit and got rid of that paper because it was just covered in pastel dust, and that would tend to get all over everything. And I'm gonna do some finishing on my cover here. And I thought I'd start by adding some stamping. I've got this really cool Tim Holtz document stamp. It's like a legal document in script. And I am going to, I guess I don't need a stamping block. I am going to stamp that on here in this coastal coral color. I think that will be subtle, but give yet even more interest to the background. And I think there's black on the ink pad, even though I tried to wash it off. And I'm just going to put this around in a few spots. It's definitely picking black up off of the pad, despite the fact that I've washed it. So that is not what I'd hoped for at all, but it's not bad. It's fine. So just in a few spots, and I can even turn this, get it going some different directions. That's something you could do before you even cut it up, but I just kind of wanted to see it in the scale and size that it was going to be in before I did any extra. Next, I want to get some gold on here, and I thought it might be fun to do some embossing because I don't do that a lot. So I have a stamp here. This is a very old stamp. I bought it at a flea market. It says 1996 on it. Denami Design from Kent, Washington. So would have no clue where you could potentially find this. And I've got some, a watermark stamp pad, Versamark, and this is an oil-based ink, and it will allow me to do the embossing with this embossing powder, which is probably 25 years old. So let's see how it goes. So I'm just going to stamp this in a few, spots. Been going off the page a little bit. Goodness, that's sticky. I'm trying to see where I've got it here. All right, and then we take our embossing powder, and you want to move a little bit quickly because that stuff will dry. And I don't have a lot of this, so I hope I didn't blow it by doing them all at once or trying to do them all at once. I can't even see where they are. I might have to do a couple runs here. I think we need a little bit more. So normally you have enough embossing powder to do this right. But when I do it, it's kind of half-baked. And again, this embossing powder is quite old, so it's hard to know if it's any good. Let's see if I can go over it one more time. Now you can capture that powder and put it right back into your container, so you're not wasting all of that. Okay, and you get sparkles everywhere. So next I have a heat tool here. This is, I have a blow dryer that I usually use to dry things, but this is actually a heat tool, and it makes the embossing go a lot faster. And you can see it's starting to kind of activate. I think you can see it. I hope you can see it. Can you see how that's changing? Now it's super hot, so it's going quickly. Cool, huh? That looks really pretty. Love it. I really don't think this needs a lot more, but what I want to do is add something to the cover. I have a basket on my desk, above my desk on the shelf, that is just full. I don't know if you can see it here. It's just full of things I've made. And I love it when I can find places for this stuff to live besides in this basket on my desk. So I pulled some items out that match our colors. And I think it would be really nice, got sparkles everywhere, to add something here. Now, this was one I really liked, but I don't think it really makes sense. All will be well. I don't know. What's that mean on a journal? I think this one's super cute. And it pops because the yellow. This is another one that would go somewhere. But again, I don't think it really makes sense in the context of the cover of a journal. Never Give Up is a nice, not bad, but I'm not liking the black. Here's another one that just says Joy. Now that kind of makes sense to me. What I do like about this is the way this is cut out, you can still see quite a bit of that flower. Whereas, you know, some of these other ones, if you were to put it down here, it completely covers that rose. Believe in Yourself. That is beautiful, but it kind of blends in too much, I think. Maybe if it were mounted on something else. Here's a tag. I think that's a little large, but it does say Create. So I kind of like the message of that one. This one too, it says Collect Beautiful Moments. But I'm not liking that one as well. This is one I just recently made as well with the tag, and it says Choose to Shine, which kind of fits when you consider the shiny gold embossing. And then the inside says Take Risks. So that's actually kind of a nice, I kind of like that with regards to a journal. Okay, that's one maybe. This one says Never Give Up, but I think it's again too big. But it's kind of a good mantra when you're working in an art journal. And then this one says Choose Joy, which I think is really nice as well. I kind of like that one as well. Doing these little collages gives me so much joy. I think either of these are really cute and really pretty, but I have to say, I think for me, this one is the one that fits the best. So I think that's the one I'm going to use. I just noticed there's a little smudge on the top. So I'm going to take my white Posca and kind of just touch that up so it's not as noticeable or barely noticeable. But I think I really like that. And I think that's all I'm going to do on this page. I think it's really pretty. I think sometimes less is more. So I'm going to glue that down. I'm going to use my art glitter glue because it's super sturdy. And this is kind of a thick piece of cardstock. I have a video on how I made this. I have a video on how I made everything that I just went through on my YouTube's channel somewhere. I'll try and find this one specifically to link to. I'm just going to put it right there. And I'm probably going to have to hold it a bit straight. I'm famous for not being straight. And people like to tell me that in the comments. All right, let's put that on the cover. Put the cover on the journal, rather. So that was a super fun, easy journal cover. I really had fun working with the soft pastels from Paul Rubens, using my hand-carved stamp in order to create this beautiful background for the cover. It was fun to pull out the embossing tools, and I'm delighted to find a spot for this little card that I made. I think it was last fall, maybe even the fall before. So that's it for me today. I hope you're having a good day, and I'll be back again soon. You can always find me on Instagram, EB Mixed Media. That's EB_Mixed Media. Thanks all. Bye.